All right, it's 8:21 here, Big 550 KTRS. Dr. Jeffrey Lowe, professor of surgery and pediatrics at Washington University, joins us via Skype as usual. Good morning, Dr. Lowe.
Kelly McGraw, good morning.
Good morning. Good to hear your voice. You pass on a story which is kind of interesting. FDA approves a new appetite pacemaker device. What is that? Does it zing you every time you eat M&Ms?
It sort of zings you before you eat the M&M. So it's not really so much a pacemaker as a neural generator that gets implanted. Looks like a pacemaker. It gets implanted. The generator gets implanted under the skin, and the electrodes get planted near the junction of where your swallowing tube meets your stomach. And by hitting the on button, it stimulates this generator to fire an electrical impulse, which theoretically makes you feel like you're full and not want to eat that M&M or bag of M&Ms.
So the person controls
it? Yeah, the person controls it. Now, this is, I would say, on the way to FDA approval. The amount of weight loss that was seen in the study group that received this was about 8%. So, 8% of 300 or 400 pounds is still a lot of weight, but that's not that much better than the placebo. So we'll see whether it has any durability and long-term effects.
It goes to show you, doctor, the lengths people will go not to exercise and eat right.
Yeah, exercise is important. I mean, there's no way about it. I mean, it's not only good to keep the weight off and to get rid of all that extra stuff that tastes good, but you probably shouldn't eat. But it's also good for your head. I mean, I always feel so much better after I exercise. My thinking is much clearer, and I'm much more relaxed. I think there's many advantages to exercise besides just
right. No, you're right. It's so true. If you can get to the gym, you feel infinitely better.
The hardest thing about it is to just do it.
Right, is to walk in the door.
Step and foot in.
It's the hardest part.
Yeah.
God is a funny guy, isn't he? All right. Yeah. What's this? We might have found the cure for Ebola.
Well, I think we're on the right track. Or possibly on the right track. So we've now, Ebola is still an issue, not in the United States right now, thankfully, but still in West Africa, where there's been thousands of people that have contracted it, and about a third to a half have died from it. So investigators in the United States are now using genetically engineered or modified cows to develop antibodies against Ebola that can potentially be used to help prevent or treat Ebola in people who have it. So much like the plasma that was transfused from people who survived from Ebola, that Dr. Brantley had many units of his plasma taken and transfused into people who had active disease. Scientists are now using cows, which have been genetically engineered to produce human antibodies to make antibodies against Ebola.
That's really interesting.
Wow.
That is really
Yeah.
interesting. So,
well, I mean, hopefully it works.
Right. So they're still in the early stages of the whole thing.
Still in the early stages, but I think one of the hardest parts was to actually find the right animal model and to modify the cow so that when the cow is making antibodies, it's not making cow antibodies, it's making human antibodies. So I'm not expert on any of this, but I'm relatively optimistic that this actually might work.
Wow, really interesting. And then before we let you go, this measles outbreak in California, how big and how bad is this thing?
Well, it's I think there's about 70, 80 children now that have contracted measles from this, and it's bad because it doesn't need to happen, because we essentially eradicated measles in the 90s, and now because of some very goofy, discredited thinking. We have in parts of California 10+% of kids who have not been immunized. And this affects not only those kids, but it affects us grown-ups too, because there probably is some waning immunity to the shots that we got against measles as kids. And so we haven't, as adults, had to re-immunize our adult population because there wasn't measles out there. Now, if there actually is measles out there, and if you're worried about getting it where there's lots of kids that are congregating and may have it, like Disney World, then there may be concerns that adults need to get re-immunized as well if there really is measles out there, because it was essentially gone in the early 1990s.
Unbelievable. Doctor, it must drive you crazy as a professor of pediatrics at Washington University to see parents not immunize their children.
Yeah, unnecessary. I mean, there's lots of things that we can't fix and that we can't are incredibly disappointing when we lose, but this is something that we won. And we're not immunizing our kids really for a totally discredited, goofy reason.
Dr. Jeffrey Lowell, professor of surgery and pediatrics at Washington University, joins us via Skype. Doctor, thanks for checking in. As always, have a good week. We'll talk to you next Wednesday.
All right, take care, McGraw.
Thanks,
Bye, Kelly.
Doctor.
Dr. Jeffrey Lowell here via Skype. And for those who want to watch us, you can certainly watch us at stltoday.com. Go to the opinion tab page. We're there. That's where we live. We also live on the front page of ktrs.com.